Toronto Blue Jays are making moves as they have made a new signing, and it is a pitcher. We're going to break down exactly who that is and discuss what impact he can make going forward, as well as break down how things keep getting better for the Toronto Blue Jays following yet another spring training win, and one player in particular shined above the rest. I'm going to break all it down in this episode, but before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, it's the place to be for daily Jays content. Your guys' support has been absolutely unbelievable. If you want to help us towards our big goal of 17,000 subscribers, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys again. Ladies and gentlemen, had a video earlier today. Rumors are starting to pick up a little bit as it pertains to trades and all those things surrounding the Jays. But the Jays did play a game today. They played a game, and it was a interesting one. It was a good one yet again, and they continued towards their quest of winning the Grapefruit League with the best record among the games. But we have a few things to go over today. Now, they did make a signing. Is it a huge one? No, I'll preface that. But I guess we cover all the reports here on the channel. So let's break it down here. From Aram Layton, left-handed pitcher Justin Bruihl, and the Blue Jays have agreed to a minor league deal. He made 7 appearances out of the bullpen for the Pirates last year and owns a 4.62 ERA in 76 career innings over parts of 4 MLB seasons. Now, this one it's not super interesting as it pertains to the actual player, but it is some more depth both at spring training for competing for spots, but also, of course, the minor leagues as well. And that's where he's probably going to end up, giving some depth to the AAA team, specifically because of a lot of the guys now, a lot of the lefties, particularly, in AAA, you don't usually and often see good left-handed relievers in the minor leagues simply because most of those guys will be in the MLB, of course. But you can see this here, looking at his stats last year for the Pirates, he had a pretty atrocious, ERA, 9.53 ERA in 7 games. However, looking at some of the years before, he actually had some decent years as recently as 2023 with the Dodgers. And the Dodgers obviously have a pretty good pitching pool. 2023 in 24 innings with the Dodgers, put up a 4.07 ERA. He's a lefty. And again, I'm probably going to mark up the signing just as depth. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact going forward. But we've seen before signings like this. I mean, even thinking back to the Brendan Little signing, all these different ones, the players end up doing well down in AAA and then come up and do decent in the big leagues. And for a lefty, you don't pitch that many innings because you're mainly a specialty guy. And obviously the 3-hitter rule now, the 3-batter rule for lefties, and I mean, every pitcher out of the bullpen makes things a little bit more interesting. But at the end of the day, he might have an impact. I wouldn't say he's going to have a huge, impact at camp this year or next season. But I think it's an interesting, at the very least, quite an interesting signing in the sense of adding left-handed depth. That's what it is at the end of the day. And I think left-handed depth is, you can never have too much of it, especially at the major league level now where, I mean, the Jays have a bunch of lefties, but none of which have really ran away with the spot aside from Brendan Little. They even signed Amir Garrett, things like that. So adding some more depth there. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time to dive into what was a very fun game today. It was a great game. And as we're now inching closer and closer to the regular season starting, we're about a couple weeks away. It is going to be, we're actually less than 2 weeks away. We're a week away from Thursday, from opening day against the Baltimore Orioles. And we saw in today's spring training game, it keeps getting better for the Jays as it pertains to their prospects, as it pertains to one player in particular who we're going to dive into here in a little bit. But let's start with Andres Gimenez, and that's what we're going to be talking about for a little bit here. He frames it, Thomas Hall, shout out to him, as a David Popkins appreciation tweet. What a marathon at bat from Andres Gimenez, which ends in an opposite field home run. All 9 of his dingers in 2024 were hit to the pull side. So this one is very interesting because not only now are, people are, I mean, again, it's spring training, but the Jays are hitting extremely good, right? Like they are hitting really well. Now, whether you want to attribute that to Don Mattingly no longer being the offensive coordinator, whether you want to attribute that to David Popkins coming in and really changing the outlook of the team. We're going to have videos covering that because there's been a lot of details that have kind of surfaced lately about the actual philosophy behind the Toronto Blue Jays hitters. But in case you missed it, here is the home run, just an absolute moonshot here to the opposite field. And again, not a moonshot in the sense of an Anthony Santander moonshot, but I'm calling it a moonshot because it's Andres Gimenez, and it's very rare that we get to see a Andres Gimenez home run at all. But for him to show some opposite field power is actually very impressive. And again, we've been on record saying, or I have been on record saying, sorry, if both, of course, George Springer, but Andres Gimenez, if he can have a really solid year. Now, we know back in 2022, he put up almost an 8 WAR because his offense was above average. That's all it has to be. Last season, a 688, 689 OPS, whatever it was, in the middling 600s. That's not going to give you a ton of room to, if you're bad defensively or even not elite defensively, you're a replacement level player. Now, luckily for us, Andres Gimenez is one of the best defensive infielders we've ever seen, of all time, right? Especially over the past decade. But if you can now get some interesting pop from him, whether it's a home run, whether it's getting on base more, all those things will lend credence to the fact that this team could do some things as it pertains to offense Also, of course, Anthony Santander with a great game. Andres Gimenez with the home run. We're seeing Alejandro Kirk really, he knows the ABS system. You see this here. He continues to master the ABS challenge system. If I'm not mistaken, I believe his record remains perfect this spring. Once that comes in the year after next, it's going to help Alejandro Kirk even more. Even though a lot of his value now is in framing, it's still going to be there. But you can also, there's going to be some value in, of course, the ABS system as well. We saw Dalton Varsho with another hit. Everyone is hitting well. Even Aurelvis Martinez got in the board here. And there's another player, which we'll dive into in a minute. But it's at the point now where their philosophy is different. They are looking to swing for impact, whether that's Santander, whether that's Vladdy, whether it's Andres Gimenez. When they swing the bat, they want to hit for power. They don't want to hit for singles. And we know that the Don Mattingly philosophy seemed to be over the past few years, especially last season when he was upgraded to offensive coordinator, which, by the way, was absurd after a pretty bad season. We know in this offseason they fired Guillermo Martinez. That was the first thing they did. In October, whenever it was, December, right after they lost in the regular season, and they didn't get anywhere in the playoffs, right? They fired Guillermo Martinez. They replaced him with Dave Popkins. And David Popkins, I see some people in the comments when I talk about it saying, why did the Twins let him go? It is what it is. The Twins were very good offensively under David Popkins, and that's not to say the Jays weren't always, bad offensively, but their complete philosophy has changed. You hear players talking about it. They're swinging for power. They're swinging to do damage. And you can see it in their spring training approach. Like, they are swinging to do damage. They are doing all these things. We see it with Andres Gimenez. Gimenez isn't swinging for singles every time, even though that's probably what his game is going to end up being. He is swinging for power. Alejandro Kirk, he's trying to pull the balls. He's trying to hit line drive rockets. All of these things are working, and it's translating really, really well. And not only is it translating to guys like, of course, Andres Gimenez, major leaguers, but Alan Roden, who had another fantastic day, hitting 109.1 miles per hour off the bat. I mean, Alan Roden is an absolute beast. He is getting a ton of playing time, and there's something to be said about him making the opening day roster. Do I think it happens? Probably not, because they have guys like David Schneider and players like that. But does he deserve it? Absolutely. And if he continues to even remotely hit as good as he did this spring in the offseason, or in the regular season with the Bisons, or wherever he goes, AAA, it will be an exciting time for Alan Roden. I think they need to do better at calling these guys up. The time is now. The time to win is now. And with Alan Roden with Spencer Horwitz, they called him up too late. They called Horwitz up too late. By the time he came up, yes, he gave his team a huge boost to their offense. By the time that happened, the team did not have a good enough record. They couldn't do anything about it. They shipped him off, of course, and got some players back in that deal. But at the same time, you're at the point now, and you got that player being Andres Gimenez, who hit the home run. But the point is now, Alan Roden looks ready to go, and it's going to be exciting to see what happens with him. A couple other things from this game. Pitching stat, Berríos looks dominant. Chad Green looked okay. He gave up a run there. Nick Sandlin looked okay, but Jacob Burns looked okay as well. Sandlin's going to be an interesting one. I wanted to bring this up here. You can see this here from Thomas Hall. With Eric Swanson's sideline, arms like Nick Sandlin will become even more important in the Jays bullpen come opening day. He needs to throw enough strikes and miss barrels, and he didn't do either consistently in 2024, but there's plenty of swing and miss upside there. We know Ben Nicholson-Smith had come out and said the Jays love Nick Sandlin as a lefty out, like getting the left-handed hitters out. And obviously he's a right-handed pitcher, but he has that splitter and things like that. So if he can use that splitter and use his ability in his arsenal to be a decent player and option against left-handed hitters, then you're going to have less of a need for guys like Justin Bruihl or Brendan Little, who's going to be, of course, in from time to time. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And it's going to be a wild next few weeks. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this. The games continue to go by. Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost a week away from opening day. Super exciting. We're keeping you up to date with all the latest news. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers.